In 2018, the AIA Chicago team identified Illinois Tech as their next campus to begin ministry on. One AIA staff member had met and started discipling Raiven Johnson, a basketball player involved with Crew and interested in learning how to share her faith with other athletes. After researching the school and setting up an appointment with the athletic director, the AIA team carpooled from Evanston to Bronzeville to scope out the campus and meet with potentially interested athletes.
I can remember Raiven telling me about these people coming to campus and that I had to meet with them, and so I was like, okay, Raiven. And so I remember sitting and having lunch with Lauren and Jamie. I don't really remember what we talked about.
The main thing I remember was talking to us about 2 Timothy and multiplication, and really just going through and seeing how we could impact our campus, even starting small, how Raiven started, then us teaching more people, and really seeing like the growth we could have on IIT's campus that way.
After praying over the campus and identifying key leaders, AIA Chicago officially launched Athletes in Action at Illinois Tech. In the launching stage, AIA staff committed to visiting the campus monthly and praying for and pursuing evangelism opportunities with the goal of finding 3 student leaders to help launch the movement.
So Raiven Johnson, she was involved in Crew, and I'd known her, but it wasn't like we were like really good friends like all the time talking. And she just walks up to me over there in one of our buildings and was like, hey, you're an athlete. You wanna start a Bible study together? And I was like, I've never led a Bible study, and I'm just now getting here. Like I've barely gone to a Bible study. Like, okay, I guess. We didn't really know where to start, and we were like, we could start in Keating. I guess that's like a sports center. Like that's a general place where like athletes like to go, or we could do a dorm that's kind of more community style. So we actually started in her dorm, which is right here. It's Gonzalez Hall, and she was like, opened up her space to us, and it was just it was awesome to see the growth in people and really just let the Spirit move in our hearts. And even though neither of us had really led anything like that.
As far as like the Bible studies we had, is only a couple of us like pretty much each week. Like I didn't hear like much conversation like between teams or anything like that.
In 2019, athlete Bible studies began to grow and more athletes at Illinois Tech became interested in Christ. However, AIA Chicago's staff team was stuck. With a lack of full-time staff able to commit to driving down to Bronzeville more than once a month, the student leaders were left with a lack of resources and help.
The hardest thing was definitely the resources and what to teach, and the timing outside of the Bible study. We didn't have time to plan an event or do a lot of other things that go along with a great ministry, and so we would just do the Bible study.
So I remember my freshman year going to the athlete Bible study, and it just pretty much being 4 of us consistently. So in that sense, there wasn't really much outreach.
That was the hardest thing, and the most challenging was wanting more, but not having the bandwidth or the time to really give it our all.
God recognized this need and led AIA Chicago, who was already doing campus ministry at Illinois Tech, to commit full time to investing in athletes. It was through her commitment that the AIA movement finally had the full attention it needed to grow into a community of athletes discovering biblical grace and truth together.
So when I was able to step onto IIT's campus full time, I had the capacity and the resources to come alongside these student leaders and really invest in them, train and equip them, to build them up, to really catalyze on the ministry that was already happening, but give them more tracks to run on, give them resources in Bible study training, discipleship training, evangelism training. Just help them process through and think through, how do we best reach the athletic department on this campus?
So before Allie came full-time, there was a lot of pressure on the student leaders because they had to worry about athletics, academics, and then just their personal growth, but then also worrying about everybody else's growth in the Bible study. And so when Allie came, she really brought more material so that it was less of a burden for the student leaders.
In January 2020, God was using AIA to draw many new athletes and freshmen to curiosity in Him. With Allie on campus full-time, all the key leaders were being trained in how to share the gospel, share their testimony, walk in the Spirit, and disciple others. Then, March 2020 happened.
Back in March when COVID started, at first we were still like, COVID, whatever is going on. It was spring break time. The school was like, we might have 2 weeks for spring break. We're like, oh cool, more spring break. And then a week went by and they said, all right, actually don't come back.
As we went along, it just kept getting more and more delayed, right? And then that kind of impacted everything that you did. It was pretty crazy just to go along and to see that none of this was going to be the same. Like, what's a college experience? Not that. We're going to do something different.
One of my biggest concerns for AIA was just when people tend to go back home over breaks and over summer, you tend to kind of go back to your home lifestyle and kind of lose contact with the people you've been with like over this whole semester.
The main thing of like any sort of ministry is mainly in person, and that's how you build community. And when you're transitioning online, there's none of that. But the amazing part was that when the 3 years that I had been a part of it, we never did anything in the summer. It was kind of like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna get back in it in August. Like, that's how a normal college thing works with semesters like we have at Illinois Tech.
Over the break, we actually saw the opposite, where we ended up doing online and we continued like studying the Bible like all throughout the entire summer, and everyone stayed committed even when we weren't together. I said when we're back, I mean, there's so much that we can do.
God is just working his magic and really his plan, and it's like not our own plan, and you can never predict it. And so I think it starts with the freshmen that came in and the people that were really passionate right away without even like telling them. They're just like, hey, we have this online, come, and they're like, I'd love to come, like let's do this. So it was pretty crazy to see that God is just like, okay, you do what you need to do. Most of it's just showing up. Let's just continue doing what we were doing in a different way. God will work in people's lives like he does.
This story of God working at Illinois Tech is a reminder that the same way God has been creating movements from the beginning is how he continues to reach people throughout history. God used a small group of faithful men and women at Illinois Tech to begin a thriving ministry that is now sharing the good news of Christ to the next generation.
I would say I was more involved in AIA second semester of my freshman year, so that's spring 2020, right before the pandemic. The pandemic, in a way, what it did was it made me realize what you consider as normal is not promised, right? And so from that perspective, it really kind of helps you to use a magnifying glass and zoom in on what's important. And God, obviously, is what's on the other side of that magnifying glass. That's what's important. Sophomore year is really more focused on my relationships with God as well as people, and also making sure that what I'm doing day in and day out is really worth it. Raiven, Robert, Jack, Alyssa, they just kind of encouraged me in a very friendly way just to attend more of the meetings. And after I went to more of them, really started to realize that it was an investment for me personally that was valuable.
The pandemic really eliminated a lot of distractions. There were no sports, you had no events to go to, you were at home. It really like caused people to look at like, what do you put your time and value in? And when you like really evaluate that and all that's taken away, all you have left is God.
It really stripped down everything that you thought was earthly. Like, wait a minute, this is gonna let me down. The earthly things of this world are gonna let me down. And you really just realize that God is the foundation and something, the gospel in Christ is the only thing that is the foundation and will never go away.
Having made some relationship and connections with some of the underclassmen, coming into core team and really looking to invest and dive into them the same way that Robert, Jack, and Alyssa, Raiven dove into and really poured into me, just giving back essentially as that discipleship model of you're given, now go out and multiply.
Please continue to pray for Illinois Tech and for God to duplicate this story again and again until every campus in Chicago is reached for his glory.